We know that Scotland's already reserved the possibility of having a second referendum, as the First Minister of Scotland has made clear. Once it is obvious to her that the likelihood is that the Scottish people will carry a referendum, she will then have it. So that's issue number one, the departure of Scotland. If the United Kingdom leaves the European Union, and Ireland doesn't, and it certainly won't, what you will actually have is an absolute imperative for a new border. A new border in a country which has achieved peace by essentially scrapping borders.
Let us not underestimate the consequences of leaving when it's about controlling British borders. The first thing that will happen is politically inevitable because French elections are around the corner, is for France to send back the people they currently accommodate on behalf of the United Kingdom to the United Kingdom. Why would France have to do Britain's dirty work? That's the first thing that will end. And please don't blame French politicians for doing what French voters will impose on them if Britain decides to leave.
So some people like the fact that as Britons they can live all over the EU. They just don't want other EU citizens coming to Britain. It is coherent with the way the issue is portrayed in the public debate, where British people are reassured that they will retain all their rights to live elsewhere in the EU and claim benefits at a level much, much higher than EU citizens within Britain do. But that Britain will control things. And I think it's really insularity and lack of sense of reciprocity that a lot of the things we want, you cannot have them unless you let other people have them too. It's just not possible. You cannot trade with other countries without giving those countries the reciprocal right to trade with you. You cannot secure rights for your own citizens to live all over the continent of Europe without accepting the citizens of those countries too.
How much have any of you heard about the 2 million Britons living on the continent of Europe? Almost nothing. And certainly nobody in the Leave campaign has ever mentioned it. And in fact, some of you know Spain, Portugal and Greece, where many of our pensioners have gone to live because they like the sunshine, have actually been amazingly generous as much poorer countries to our own pensioners who get the full health benefits that they would have in the NHS from countries like Spain, which are far, far poorer.
Part of the reason why so many people came to the UK after EU enlargement was that it was only the UK, Ireland and Sweden who kept their labour markets open at that point. And really Sweden is able to regulate labour migration using labour law. You know, there is no way to undercut Swedish workers in the Swedish labour market because of labour market regulation. Whereas the UK has a really unregulated labour market. And this has nothing to do with the European Union. So there was a British policy choice, one admittedly that has been implemented over decades, but that has created a very unregulated labour market at the lower end, which means that employers can really have their pick of workers and pay them whatever they want, and an unenforced minimum wage. Issues that are genuinely under our control, that we have control over, British labour market regulation, social provision in the UK, how the NHS is run, and their degradation is somehow being, I think, unfairly and incorrectly blamed at the EU level.
Good example of taking back control. You may remember that the Mayor of London locked in a cupboard the information that said that the district schools in London, in the poorest districts, were affected so seriously by air pollution that the public health authorities said the children there were in real danger. And it was only when the European Union started being very irritating by going around and actually measuring levels of, for example, air that affected things like asthma, that finally Mr. Boris Johnson, in one broadcast only, reluctantly mention air pollution, which is desperate in London. Is he taking back control? No. There's a lot of hypocrisy in the world taking back control, and a lot of it involves domestic politics.
In the event, God forbid, of a vote to leave, it's widely suggested that the present House of Commons would not assent to any arrangement which took Britain out of the single market, that being not in their constituents' interests.
No, he's right.
If that is the case, what will the reaction be of those millions of people who thought they were voting to end EU migration and end laws made in Brussels?
I think what many people simply don't understand is that there's one issue after another that cannot be dealt with or overcome on the basis of one sovereign country. And the obvious one, which affects many young people, is climate change. So what do we do then when we face climate change? We either operate by putting together a group of countries which are all sovereign, but together may be able to conduct a solution to this problem, like the Paris conference of January went some way to do. But just forget it. You cannot deal with it on the basis of taking back control in the United Kingdom. And for me, in many ways, the absolutely crucial central issue is whether the United Kingdom, with admittedly a patchy but remarkable historical record, decides to abdicate from the world because it doesn't want to face the huge issues of great refugee flows, of inequality, of relationships with the whole of the Eurasian continent. Then it will be a tragic departure from its own best traditions, and one I hope you will all do everything you can to ensure does not happen.